We are here. Welcome to another edition of MLB Pro Happy Hour. I am your anonymous GM, joined as always by Brenton. We are back for a special edition of what you're cooking with. How about you take control and let's see what you have going for us today.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Let's do round two of the 30 people that will define the MLB Pro 21 season. Just to recap, we covered yesterday or 2 days ago, however many days it was. We covered Bryce Harper, Wander Franco, Mark Appel, Jamie Vega, Fernando Tatis Jr., Lucas Giolito, Nick Senzel, and Scott Radinsky. And so we will just keep going here. Basically, I'm just going up and down this list, picking random people and talking about why I think they're going to define the 2021 season. Joined by yourself today to get some alternative takes as well. So let's launch into it, man. I will go with the top name on my list, not currently crossed out, and that is Garrett. I'm going to butcher this name, Select, from the Pittsburgh Pirates, the all-star outfielder last year. And real quickly, why I think he is going to be a defining player for the 2021 season is, honestly, I don't think he finishes the season in Pittsburgh. You know, after the Pirates dealt Alex Bregman in a shock move earlier this offseason, I don't think they have a shot to compete again unless you think that Alex Baum or Jared Stevenson come up and fill some of that void. So I think the Pirates fall behind possibly even Milwaukee early on and end up dealing Select for more prospects a little later on. What are your thoughts on Mr. Select?
I think he's coming off of a fantastic year. Hit 25 homers, 260, kind of a year out of nowhere. Very limited playing time before that. You're right, he's 28 years old. I do think the trade of Alex Bregman changes things, but he was a dynamic pair between him and Michael Conforto in that outfield. I think what's interesting is taking a look at this is Mason Marley going to make the Pirates opening day roster? And if he does, I think you're onto something that Garrett Schlecht could be a prime candidate to be moved and rebuild and retool a young farm system in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, Marley's interesting, right? With the way he plays defense, the way he does on the base pass, the fact that he is, I think he's OSA's top-rated prospect, 1 or 2 right now, right? He's not a 19-year-old. He is 23, so it's kind of coming up on the time, although he didn't get above high A last year. I don't know. I just think Pittsburgh makes the move, right? I mean, Select, to your point, came out of nowhere. He hit 366 in spring, not flashing a lot of power, but he did continue what was a spectacular season last year into spring this year. If he gets off, stays hot, maybe Pittsburgh rolls the dice and says, hey, this is what he is, and I can get a couple pieces for him. And with somebody like Marley right behind him, with Stevens and Baum and all these other guys coming up, why not make the move, right? Especially if you can boost the rotation was great in spring too. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe Pittsburgh is.
I will say this. I am high on Pittsburgh. I still think they panicked and moved Alex Bregman 3 years before they needed to. And that's not to knock the return that they got, but he was under team control for a while. And the underrated part of this team is the pitching staff and what they're adding in Gary Griffith, who's one of the best young pitchers in baseball. You add him with Chris Scalise. You still have Carlos Meza, Tristan Beck, Cody Chapman, a bullpen that didn't get quite enough credit for last year. While the Cardinals are the team to beat, I think, again, in the Central, there's no reason the Pirates aren't knocking down the door of 85, 86, 87 wins. And who knows, maybe that's good enough for a playoff spot in the National League.
Yeah, I may be the biggest Pirate haters in this league. For whatever reason, I just cannot get on board with this team. The more I look up and down it, I've been banging that drum since last year, and I was wrong last year. I am ready to be wrong again this year. What do you think drives a Select move, and what do you think drives a Select staying as a Pirate this year? What are the two scenarios here?
I think it all depends on Marley. If Marley makes the opening day roster, and if he proves he's spam call. If Mason Marley proves he's capable to play every day, they're going to want him playing every day. And I think that would be what would allow them to move a Schlecht. Whereas if Marley proves he's not quite ready, I do think that Schlecht stays and they compete. But it's kind of right on that fence. And the other option would be moving Kurt Franklin and giving Marley center field, and you put Marley between Conforto and Schlecht, and you have what could be a really good outfield. You're on to something with Schlecht having trade value, which makes it enticing, but it's an interesting piece.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, that's why I think he defines this season, right, for multiple reasons. He can moved, or to your point, Pittsburgh competes. And I think if Pittsburgh competing, it's because Schlecht is continuing to hit well. They find a place for Marley and some of these other guys catch up, and maybe Pittsburgh is the real deal. So I think he has a effect here either way.
And looking at this, Schlecht was the Gold Glove winner in left field last year. You put him a Gold Glove winner in left field. You put a young outfielder who can win a Gold Glove in center field along with the bat and Conforto. That works for me.
Yeah, it is a bummer that you did not see the Pittsburgh Pirates play the old Kaiser Soze or Justin Soze move of putting him in right field in spring and getting him a little better rating out there. They got to break the fourth wall here. He's still not rated as a great right fielder. I'm sure he can do it, but anyhow, that is the Garrett Schlecht piece, and we can move on. I want to move to the American League and move away from players to a general manager. Our first general manager we'll talk about in this series, but I think Ronald Cook is going to be a defining piece in the 2021 season because the Twins are in a precarious position, right? They are a team that still has championship aspirations internally at the very least. They're a team that still has a lot of very, very good pieces, but after winning the division 3 straight years from 2017 to 2019, they finished third in 2020 ago. Okay, so they just filed the 2020. They're in fourth right now because of the name, but they fell out of first place for the first time since 2017 with a third place finish and only 76 wins, a 22 win drop from the year before. A lot of people out there are thinking this is a 3-way race between Chicago, Cleveland, and Minnesota. If the Twins get off to a rough start, there are a lot of pieces here in Minnesota that could get moved for a big return and shake races everywhere. So I think Rocky Cook is a huge piece here in this position because what he does with his team is going to shape a number of different divisions.
It all starts with someone like Nolan Arenado. I believe entering his final year of his contract. Is that correct? He is.
Yep.
He's in the final year of his contract. We've heard Miguel Sano for however many. Is he still there or has he been traded? Who knows with Rocky these days? I'm trying to look this up. Where is Miguel Sano? He's been traded. Okay. So Arenado is still there. But you're right. Some of this, I want to say some of last season's Minnesota Twins season was dictated both by bad luck within OOTP and with the world that was taking place in the world last year. And I think it kept the Twins from doing moves that would have maybe saved their season. But I think we're way too early to write this Twins team off, especially when they still have the best player in baseball in the middle of their lineup.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, the fact that they've been, I think, more seriously entertaining a Gary Copeland move this offseason than any other time, although the price tag is astronomical. I've heard from a number of different GMs that have engaged the Twins in conversations that the ask for Copeland is just not, you can't touch it, right? And it's not wrongly so. The man's incredible with that. But the fact that he's been considering it at this point tells me something about what we're thinking about this team, right? If you look up and down this pitching staff, it ain't young. It ain't exactly world beaters. They're not bad. Tanaka, Kirby, Evaldi, Hale, Barnes, Sampson, they're all decent guys at good springs, but there's no stopper here. There's no true ace. The team is aging. There's some holes. Although Rocky's not one to panic, I would look at this team and think if they're 10 to 15 games back of the White Sox or the Cleveland Baseball Club here in a month or two, does Rocky start to look and make some moves with hopefully what is an expanded calendar for him to be able to make these trades and have these talks and pull some guys up? His farm system's not deep. Well, there's some interesting pieces there. So, maybe it's time for the Twins to hit that reset button. I don't know. That may just be some outside perspective here, but I will be watching the Twins very closely early on in the year.
There's 2 players I want to key in on, and then a Copeland question for you. The 2 players that I think could dictate a lot of whether the Twin success this year come in the outfield, both Jordan Adele and Corey Ray. Adele, his second full year in the Twins, a kind of disappointing rookie season, but a well-regarded prospect still. And Corey Ray coming over from Oakland, who's had success, is a plus defender. If he can get on base in front of Copeland, in front of Lewis Allen, I think it's a team that could be dangerous. And then you were talking about Copeland and the potential for moving him. A 2-part question, I guess. His bat is obviously as good as it gets, but you also mentioned he's basically a designated hitter. You're in the National League, not putting you on the spot, but is he a player that could he be traded to the National League, or is his defense so substandard that he has to be moved to the American League? And if that's the case, how many teams out there? I mean, are we talking like 3 or 4 teams? I mean, again, now we're at the point of why trade him? That's kind of my take.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Minnesota has a real reason to trade him. Speaking as a National League GM, absolutely, I would take him in a heartbeat. Now his bat is terrible, and if these career stats, if the game is keeping the stats appropriately in the engine here, he had a -20 ZR last year. He'll commit 2 errors, but like he is not getting off the bag to make any plays, right? So you have to have a spectacular second baseman. But I think with the bat he's got, if you've got enough confidence and you're one of these people that doesn't believe defense is a thing, which is a good portion of our league, yeah, absolutely somebody takes a shot. But I have been told point blank the asking price is 3 major leaguers and a top flight arm to get him off of that team. And I don't know how many teams have 3 major leaguers that can give up for a defensive black hole or a DH, right? So to your point, I don't think it happens. Although I do think that if someone makes the offer, Rocky does it.
Rocky would not be afraid to do it. I think this year the Twins bounce back and they're right back there in contention with the likes of Cleveland and Chicago.
If that is true, the Central is going to be a fucking blast to watch because those are 3 very good baseball teams. If that's true.
And just quickly stay in the Central, and then we'll get to your list. The team there's the other 2 teams don't get enough love either. Kansas City's getting better by the day.
Yep.
And while Jim hates his team in Detroit, that pitching staff is really good. And if depending on how it plays out, there are some good pieces in Detroit. They're not a cakewalk. Playing anyone in the Central, it's a tough game.
Yeah, I think Detroit is not credit to your point as much as I don't believe he's a real threat this year. Ricardo Rosa is a really fun rookie to watch this year. Keston Hiura is a guy I've always liked. Hayward being a plug-and-play guy that everybody thinks he'll flip, but I mean, it goes Rosa, Hiura, Hayward, Noonan, Wheelock, Victor Robles. That's 6 guys. Isn't bad. That competes with a lot of teams, outside of the AL West, really. And to your point, the pitching staff, if Liberatore and Chapman and Weimer and Maury and Garcia can hold this thing together, Detroit's not terrible. They can hover around that 500, just sub 500 mark if everything breaks right. Realistically, they probably got a couple of years left, but it's a fun team. This division could be one of the up-and-coming divisions, depending on how Minnesota tends to skew. Chicago and Cleveland still have a couple of years left with their rosters before they have to start reconstructing. Who knows where the power shifts in a couple of years, but this is a fun division. And to your point, Kansas City is great. I don't want to spend a lot of time on them because I don't know enough about them, but I do like what they're doing down there a ton. Let's move back to the National League, and let's go to the National League West and talk about Clayton Kershaw, a recently moved former Cy Young winner who was the cause of a couple of fun conversations over the last couple of weeks of people like wondering, can Clayton Kershaw continue his success in Colorado, right? Will the altitude, will the history of Colorado, although I think it's overshaded in our league, affect the way he pitches? And so I think he's a really interesting piece, even despite the fact that the Colorado Rockies have a stacked lineup and that Kershaw maybe isn't even the best pitcher on their rotation. If you look at that, they also picked up Trevor Bauer and Miguel Pineda and a bunch of other guys in this Rocky, or Ronald Durham. I think Clayton Kershaw defines this season because he is the only left-handed starter on a team that has World Series aspirations. And if he cannot adjust to this altitude and the way that you have to pitch in Colorado, what does Eddie Buchholz do? Because the man is not shy of a deal, as somebody kind of half pointed out the other day. Like, I think Eddie may have been responsible for half the deals this offseason. This team, will they have patience with him if he struggles out of the gate?
I think they'll have patience. Let's remember that some of his starts will come on the road.
Yep.
He doesn't put many guys on base, so even if he gives up more home runs, a lot of them are going to be solo home runs. Will he be? He is. I mean, to me, the bigger concern might be his age than the number of home runs he might give up. Again, he gives up 30 home runs. He still strikes out 200. I mean, he had 258 strikeouts, 29 walks last year. Yeah. There's still a lot there to like, even if he. I mean, even in giving up 23 homers last year in St. Louis. To your point, he doesn't need to be godlike because they have other pitchers both in the rotation and they have one of the deepest bullpens in baseball. I think there's still a lot to like about Clayton Kershaw, and I think it was a gamble that made sense for both sides. St. Louis had younger arms. They really like the makeup of Craig Cooper and what they brought in, bringing him in out of Coors and into Busch. And Eddie wants to win. Eddie wants to win now. And we saw that with Bauer. We see that with Kershaw. And it's a risk worth taking.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I love Clayton Kershaw. I think he's worth every penny of that $35 million he makes every year. The most interesting piece to me is that he had career highs in strikeouts per 9 and walks per 9 last year at 32 years old after 10 years in this friggin' league. Like, the guy is insane. He continues to produce. I have zero reservations that he's going to be spectacular this year, right? There was a hot take. I think it was literally just made to be a hot take that he would be a league average pitcher in Coors. I strongly disagree with that statement. By the way, I also disagree with the other side of that argument that Craig Cooper is average. I think Craig Cooper is spectacular, but that's a different story. He is on this list somewhere, so we'll get to him.
Even if he has a subpar season, it doesn't really matter because the Rockies are going to make the playoffs. I mean, it really comes down to what does Clayton Kershaw do in the playoffs.
Absolutely. I mean, this team's spectacular. Watching the Rockies and the Diamondbacks compete all year with a good Dodgers team in the division, by the way. The Padres suck, and the Giants are just ancient. So, I like the Giants roster, they're so old. Watching Colorado and Arizona battle out this year is one of the few. I think with the AL Central and the National League West are two of the few divisions. Honestly, absolutely, the AL West is an interesting race at the top, but have some fun races to watch of who's going to win these things. And there's some other divisions that are just cakewalks. So, Clayton Kershaw is going to define this season. I think he'll be an ace again, but he'll be an ace in the 2 slot behind Pineda. And by the way, in front of another potential Cy Young winning award bidder in Trevor Bauer, who will just be spectacular in Colorado with the run support he'll get here. So anyway, that is the Clayton Kershaw story. Next on my list is not a person, but I think it's worth exploring, and that is the Yankees outfield seats. How many times are they going to get hit this year with baseballs leaving this field? Because my God, if you look up and down the roster Rhett Parker has built on offense and defense, mind you, there's just going to be balls flying out. Like, I don't. If you get on base in New York, just don't even take a step off the bag and risk tripping and getting picked off because you're probably coming home, right? If you look them down if you skip Marwin Gonzalez and skip Ronald Luna at 1 and 9, Arise, Sano, Sanchez, Velasquez, Zaragoza, Chavez, and Ortiz all have the possibility, in my opinion, have the ability. They could all hit 30 home runs. 7 people on this team could hit 30 home runs this year.
Arai hit 44 last year. Sano hit 37. Velasquez hit 34. Sanchez hit 28 in 128 games. Ramon Ortiz hit 27 in 117 games. Yeah, there's no reason they don't have at least 5 guys hit 30, at least.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And Brett's probably not done. He has shown the propensity to go out and take somebody on who's a risk just because they can mash. I don't expect him to not do it. The interesting piece, if you flip this script and look at the pitchers that he has got going here, Dylan Bundy gave up 25 home runs in Seattle last year, the most he's ever given up, right? If you look at Jordan Lyles, he gave up 28 home runs between Detroit and New York last year. Judd Graham, I think, is the one exception here. He only gave up 5, but he only made 20 starts. Like, if you have 16 between Washington and Colorado, right? This team all the way up and down, like Kwang Young Kim, the guy they signed last year, gave up 13 home runs in 13 starts last year. So he's averaging a home run a start. So he makes 30 starts. That's another 30 home runs he's given up. And Cal Quantrill, bless the man, at 25 years old, is their best bet, I guess. But he gave up 3 home runs in limited time. So nobody on this team is a ground ball pitcher. Nobody is trying to keep the ball. They're just embracing this shit and say, we're going to hit home runs. You're going to hit home runs. We're going to have fun, give away souvenirs, and whoever hits the most wins.
It's going to be interesting. That is, I mean, they're going to have a guy on the bench in either Rafael Castillo or Ivan Chavez who is capable of hitting 25 homers.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. Look, if nothing other than just the pure chaos of the matter of the situation here, like, it's just fun, right? Everybody else is not that they're trying to outthink the room. Everybody's trying to be smart, right? Get on base. Let's have some on base guys. Let's get some, high target ground ball pitch. No, New York's just saying, screw it. Let's go. Let's do this. And by the way, Christian Yelich, I didn't even talk about him, is on the DH. So he will be coming back at some point. So Christian Yelich is also there. You get 30 home runs. So yeah, they have 2 guys on the bench hit 20 home runs on top of their 5 to 6 30 home run guys. It's going to be a blast. And I wish I had thought about how, like, do the quick math on that. I guess let me do this real quick. Over under 250 home runs as a team for the Yankees. Is that high or low? That seems high. Yeah, that's high.
That does seem high, but yeah, that's more than one a game. Does seem high. Well, let's see. Last year they hit 284.
Okay. All right, so that seems low, actually. Do they beat that number? Do they beat 284 home runs as a team this year?
Yes.
That's insane. I love it. Rhett, I love it. Please, God, never change. It's so much fun. How much time do you have left?
I have another 10 minutes.
10 minutes, perfect. So let's go back to the National League and let's talk about the National League East frontrunners historically and presumed this year. I see no reason to doubt that. But let's talk about Greg Bird specifically in this Mets lineup, right? I see no reason to think that the Mets don't win the division this year. I see no reason to think the Mets don't make a deep run in the playoffs and are not one of the top National League competitors for the pennant. But Greg Bird is going to be a big piece of this, right? He's the only real, unless I missed something, change this team has made since the start of the 2020 season was adding Greg Bird. Am I wrong there?
You are not. That is true.
So he's the only change. He was hot out of the gate and then kind of fell off a cliff a little bit and came back to or still had posted a 3 WAR over 76 starts, which is spectacular for a catcher, but did fall way off. If Greg Bird can be start of 2020 Greg Bird, where again he posted a 2.1 WAR over 36 games in Atlanta, if anything like that in early 2020, I think that the Mets have nothing to worry about and this team runs away with it, right? If Greg Bird is the second half 2020 Greg Bird, I do think that's a hole in his lineup, and he's not good enough defensively, despite what maybe is the argument of catcher's defense, to justify being in that lineup, what he's going to make and get the pay. What do you make? $15 million? That's not that much. Actually, his paycheck's not that bad. So Greg Bird to me defines this season because Bruce in New York has been so calculated and so good about what he does for so long. If Bird is not the answer there, which I don't think he will be, I think he will be the answer, Steve. I don't think he won't be. But if he's not, what do the Mets do? Do they bring somebody up? Do they have a piece there? Do they make a trade? Where do they go? Or do they let somebody like Miami or Washington make a run at them?
There's two interesting pieces when I look at that team. I think one or three. The first being Greg Bird. I think you nailed Greg Bird. They have someone like Chad Lewis sitting on their bench, who a couple years ago was an everyday third baseman. Will he be sliding in and splitting time with Mike Salaz at third? I think that's going to be an interesting thing. But the big addition to the Mets this year is going to be the return of Kyle Raddatz to the mound.
He's in the rotation, by the way. Did you see that?
It does appear to be he's in the rotation, which is a surprise based upon how he pitched in the closer role. He gave up 2 homers, and those were the only 2 runs he gave up all last year, pretty much.
1 home run, gave up 4 runs, 1 home run.
And it might have been a 3-run homer, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
It was something absurd. He was lights out. I mean, a .64 ERA in 56 innings. But they did lose Max Scherzer from the rotation. So you add in another power lefty to behind Vega, Lincecum, Nice. Makes sense. They still have quality arms in the bullpen. You did highlight two teams chasing in Miami and Washington who were quality teams. The Mets are still the favorite. Even if Greg Bird struggles, I'd be hard pressed to say they're not going to win the National League East.
I don't doubt that. But the question for them is not the National League East. It's can they make the World Series and beat out Colorado or Arizona or the Cardinals? And if Greg Bird struggles and Kyle Raddatz is just an average starter as opposed to the lockdown, you're not scoring a run on me if we have a lead late kind of pitcher, can they beat one of those teams? I don't know.
Well, then let's change the tune a little bit and say another player that could be key is Alberto Vega, who finished last year hurt with forearm injury, and has struggled here in spring training with an ERA north of 6. If Alberto Vega doesn't pitch like an ace, you're right. They can't compete with the likes of St. Louis, Arizona, Colorado. If Alberto Vega is good, and if Tim Lincecum is good, and if Kyle Raddatz is able to pitch in the rotation, I think 1 through 3, they're able to challenge even a team like Colorado, with you just talked about between Pineda, Kershaw, and Bauer. Vega could be the guy to watch in New York.
Yeah. Honestly, had I noticed that Radatz was in the rotation right now as opposed to in the bullpen, he would have been my guy to watch in New York. I didn't realize that until I pulled the team up. I just remembered Greg Bird falling apart, and I wanted to think about him and what he could potentially mean for this team. But Radatz is the piece to watch here, I think, honestly. If he can't pitch out of that rotation, I guess that means you got to hope Manuel Sachs is ready in a couple of months. I really don't know because they only have 5. I mean, Matt Harvey comes back in 4 months, but whatever. I don't know. All right, let's do one more. I think I just heard my kids get home. Yeah, I did. So let's do one more, and then we will run. And I think if we're going to go back to the American League, I am looking at. Hey, buddy. I'm looking at Brian Hennessy in LA. I don't know if he is still on the roster, but he is the presume. If he's not, we can move away from him. He's not. Oh, he still is, but they haven't made their moves here, right? Fuck that. No, Caleb Coward's starting up there. Let's not do Brian Hennessy. Let's do Rod Swift in Cleveland because I think Cleveland has hopes that they can compete for the championship this year. And I think Rod Swift and Steven Strasburg carry a ton of weight on their shoulders for that. He got better year over year, right? He still pitched, well, he only pitched 123 innings. So he did have an injury-riddled season last year, but he did lower his ERA. He raised his strikeout rate. He lowered his walk rate. So he was better in 2020 than he was in 2019. He was great in 2019. He's probably on his way to posting, a 5 WAR season as a starter. I love that. Can Rod Swift come back and continue to be dominant in this Cleveland baseball team rotation after struggling a little bit in spring with 5.32 ERA against, again, limited space? And if he can't, can Cleveland recover from a subpar Rod Swift?
Cleveland cannot recover from a subpar Rod Swift, but I don't think they're going to get a subpar Rod Swift. I think that ERA is a little inflated, but by his last start, he gave up 5 earned runs March 22nd against the Tigers. Before that, he didn't give up a start with more than 3. 2 of those were 2 earned runs. 2 of those were 1 earned runs. He struck out 8 in a pair of 4 inning starts. The power arm's still there. Can he go deep into games will be a question mark coming off of his injury, especially having traded, Ron Gary? Was he the closer? Rod Gary.
Ken Gary.
To Oakland. So I think there's a hole in the back end of that bullpen, which is going to be something to monitor. You can't have quality starts by Strasburg and Swift ruined by a bullpen. They still do have Mark McCain. But I think that could be something that I'd be concerned about heading into the season, would be the bullpen blowing quality starts by Swift.
Yeah, they're a little thin in the bullpen. I was not expecting to see that. I like their split between right and left. They can go much either way, but outside of McCain, there's not somebody I love out here. And again, it's tough to compare everybody to Colorado. When you compare this bullpen to Colorado, which is the gold standard of how to build a friggin' bullpen, my God, is it spectacular. Cleveland is not there. So
now at the same time, to say that, 2 players that kind of fly under the radar would be John Guerrero, who had back-to-back quality years in Tampa Bay and Cleveland out of the bullpen, and Julio Rosado, who last year had a 2.5 ERA in 68 innings. So there are quality arms, but I think you kind of hit it. Maybe the depth isn't quite what it could have been had they not made that trade with Oakland.
Yeah, it just seems like if you're going to win rings, you have to be spectacular somewhere, or really in multiple places, right? And I think Rod Swift, if he is Rod Swift that we saw in 2019 and 2020, he's young. We expect to bounce back, absolutely. Gives them a 1-2 punch of Strasburg and Swift, and then even if you want to throw Malinowski in, who's been good, that really, really puts Cleveland into that elite potential 1-2 punch here. Their offense is good, not great, which is concerning to me. And that, to your point, the bullpen is solid, but not. I don't feel Kyle Radatz. I don't feel Kadir Hashim, right? I don't feel who's Dennis Moore in Colorado, who struggled last year, mind you. But I don't feel that fear when Cleveland gets to their bullpen the way I did with Ken Gary and some of the other pieces. So, if Rod Swift can't go deep, if Steven Strasburg gets hurt, cross your fingers that he doesn't, because he's been pretty healthy over his career, despite the fact that I believe he has that fragile rating. It just concerns me a little bit, right? So that's just something to watch. I think he defines the season because, as we've already talked about, the Central is going to be so competitive. if Cleveland as a whole, Broad Swift has to be an ace and a potential Cy Young candidate.
Can I throw one more name from Cleveland out to you for a second?
Do it.
Tommy Joseph
Yeah.
came over in the Michael Pineda trade with the Yankees, a salary dump trade. He was a good player with the Yankees last year. Hit 20 homers, was hitting 290 in 90 games. Comes over to Cleveland, hit 3 homers and hit 191. That's a big black hole, and you're paying a ton of money if Tommy Joseph. He has to produce. He just has to produce. I mean, what he's sitting right now behind Chris Betts in the middle of that lineup. They are putting a lot on Tommy Joseph's shoulders after a very tough start in Cleveland last year.
Yeah, I like Tommy Joseph. I do. If you spring training is such a take it or leave it kind of thing. If you believe in spring training being an indication of regular season, you're so excited about what you're going to get Tommy Joseph. 320, 8 home runs in spring training. Absolutely, I will take that. The great news is he does not have to catch because Chris Betts is one of the best young catchers in baseball he's probably my favorite young catcher in baseball by a pretty good mile. So Tommy Joseph just has to hit. That's all he has to do. If he can focus on that, not strike out, and just hit the friggin' ball, you've got something here, right? But yeah, he was bad last year after the move. So we'll see if he can adapt, if he can continue this spring. I like Tommy Joseph here. I don't think he kills the team, but that is the name to watch for sure.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm sorry that I have to run, but I figure you'll be back with part 3 here in the coming days.
Yep. I'm trying to get it done. Opening days in a couple of days. I'll try to get it done tomorrow so we can finish off the list and start this thing fresh.
Perfect. Well, thank you for doing this, and we'll be back with another edition of the 30 Players to Watch here shortly. Thanks, guys.